Welcome to the Artificial Fluency Podcast. I'm Emma, and today we will talk about something different. If you're looking to improve your English listening and writing skills, you're in the right place. Today's episode is all about helping you get better at listening by hearing real-life stories and examples. As you listen, try to focus on the details. This will not only help with your listening, but also give you new ideas to write about in English. And remember, if you enjoy the content, don't forget to press the like button. Let's start with a couple of questions. Have you ever faced a challenge in your life that changed your perspective? Or maybe you've learned something new from a simple conversation. These are the types of experiences that we'll explore today. I want to share a story about a time I was really challenged at work. I had to prepare for a presentation in front of a large group of people. I remember feeling nervous, but I knew I had to push through. I practiced for weeks, but something happened on the day of the presentation that I didn't expect. The projector wasn't working, and I had to do everything without slides. I had no choice but to rely on my speaking skills and my ability to connect with the audience. And guess what? It turned out to be one of my best presentations. This story is a good example of how challenges can help you grow. It's also a reminder that when something doesn't go as planned, you can still succeed if you adapt quickly. Speaking of challenges, let's talk about Sarah. Sarah is a friend of mine who recently moved to a new country. She didn't know anyone there, and she didn't speak the language very well. But instead of staying in her comfort zone, she decided to step out and learn. She started practicing with her neighbors, and after just a few months, she became really good at speaking English. She told me that what helped her the most was simply talking to people, even if she made mistakes. The key was not being afraid of speaking. This is a perfect example of how you can improve your English. If you're not speaking often enough, try to have conversations with people around you. Don't worry if you make mistakes. What's important is that you keep practicing. Now, I want to ask you another question. Have you ever learned something new just by talking to someone else? You don't always need a classroom to improve. Sometimes real-life conversations are the best way to learn. For instance, a few weeks ago, I met a man named John at a cafe. He was telling me how he improved his English by reading books and listening to podcasts. He said he would listen to an episode, then write a summary of what he heard. This helped him improve both his listening and writing skills. What a great tip, right? So, as you're listening to this episode, try to focus on the stories and details. Afterward, you can practice your writing by summarizing what you've learned. It's a simple way to improve both skills at the same time. Let's take a moment to think about the story of Jack. Jack had always been shy when it came to speaking English, especially in front of strangers. One day, his wife suggested he join a local group where people gather to practice languages. At first, Jack was nervous, but over time he became more comfortable. He started speaking with others regularly, and before he knew it, he was speaking English much more confidently. This just shows that the more you practice, the better you get. Listening to these kinds of stories can inspire you to keep going in your own English learning journey. The most important thing is to keep practicing every day. Let me tell you another story. This one is about Amina. Amina works at a small bakery in her town. When she first started, her English was very basic. She could only greet customers and say simple phrases like, "How can I help you?" or "Thank you." But every day she listened carefully to how people spoke. She started repeating the sentences she heard, and slowly she began to speak more confidently. One day, a tourist came into the bakery and asked her for directions to the nearest pharmacy. Amina was nervous, but she remembered the phrases she had learned and gave clear directions. The tourist smiled and thanked her. That moment gave Amina a lot of confidence. She told me later that it felt amazing to help someone using English. Now think about that. Amina didn't attend expensive classes. She just paid attention to real conversations. You can do the same. Listen to how people speak, repeat those phrases, and use them when you talk. Let's talk about something else that's very common. Shopping at a market. Imagine you are in a market in another country, and you need to buy some vegetables. You might not know all the words, but you can still ask simple questions like, "How much is this?" Or, "Can I have 1 kilo, please?" These small sentences are very useful, and the more you use them, the more comfortable you become. I remember when I visited a small town for the first time. I didn't speak their local language, so I used English. At the vegetable stall, I said, "I would like to buy 2 tomatoes and 1 cucumber, please." The seller smiled and helped me. He even repeated the names of the vegetables to help me remember. That day, I learned new words and had a real conversation. Here's a tip. After listening to a story like this, take 5 minutes to write down what you heard. You don't need perfect grammar. Just write what you understood. It's a great way to train both your listening and writing skills. Let me share a story about Ibrahim, a man who drives a taxi. He wanted to improve his English so he could talk with passengers from other countries. Every day he would listen to English podcasts during his break time. He wrote down new words and practiced saying them out loud. One day, a customer from Canada got into his taxi and asked him about the city. Ibrahim replied in English and even gave some interesting facts. The customer was surprised and said, "Your English is really good." That small compliment made Ibrahim feel proud and motivated him to keep learning. You see, these small daily actions like listening to podcasts, talking with customers, and writing down new words can make a big difference. Let's imagine a woman named Layla. She works in a hospital as a nurse. She often speaks with patients and doctors. Some patients speak English, and Layla always tries to help them. When she doesn't know a word, she writes it down and checks it later. She also keeps a small notebook with useful sentences. For example, "Do you feel pain?" or "Please take this medicine twice a day." With time, her English improved a lot because she learned through real situations. You don't have to be in a hospital or a taxi to learn this way. Even if you're at home, you can listen, repeat, and write. Here's something you can try. After this episode, think about a story from your life. Try to write it in English. It can be something simple, like what you did yesterday or a time you helped someone. When you write your story, read it out loud. This helps you hear your own English and get better. Let's talk about Omar, a farmer who lives in a small village. He started learning English because he wanted to talk to visitors who came to see his farm. Every morning, after feeding the animals, he would listen to an English story. He repeated the sentences out loud while walking through the fields. Slowly, he learned to describe his daily work in English. One day, a visitor asked him about the crops, and Omar answered clearly, explaining when he planted them and how he cared for them. This is a great example of how learning can happen anywhere, not just in a classroom. Now I want to ask you, can you describe your daily routine in English? Try saying it out loud or writing it down. Start with simple sentences like, "I wake up at 6," or "I eat breakfast with my family." Keep building your sentences. The more you do this, the stronger your English will become. Let's continue with more stories and learning from everyday life. Today, I want to tell you about Daniel. Daniel works in a grocery store in a small town. He always wanted to speak English better because many tourists visit his town during the summer. At first, he was shy. When someone asked him something in English, he would smile but say only a few words. But Daniel didn't give up. Every night after work, he listened to short English stories on his phone. He would pause the audio, repeat the sentences, and write them in a notebook. One day, an older couple from the United Kingdom came into his store. They were looking for bottled water, but they couldn't find it. Daniel saw them looking around and asked, "Can I help you?" They smiled and said, "Yes, we're looking for water." Daniel said, "It's in aisle 3, near the snacks." The couple thanked him and said his English was very clear. Daniel felt proud. That small conversation gave him a big boost of confidence. Later, he told me that the secret to his progress was simple: practice every single day. He didn't wait for a perfect time or special teacher. He used what he had: his phone, a notebook, and real conversations with people. That's something we all can do. Now let's talk about Emma. She works as a receptionist in a small office. She answers phone calls, helps visitors, and organizes appointments. One day, a man came in who only spoke English. Emma felt nervous, but she remembered what she had been practicing. She said, "Hello, how can I help you?" The man needed help filling out a form. Emma took her time and explained it slowly. She used short and clear sentences like, "Please write your name here and sign at the bottom." The man completed the form and said, "Thank you so much, your English is very good." Emma smiled. After he left, she wrote down the words she used and added them to her list of useful phrases. She told me she always does this after speaking. In English, she writes new words and practices them later. This habit helped her improve quickly. Think about this. How often do you write down new words or phrases after listening to English or speaking with someone? If you don't do this yet, it's a very useful habit to start. Even writing 1 or 2 sentences each day can help a lot. Let me share another story. This one is about Thomas, a delivery driver. He spends most of his day driving, but he wanted to improve his English to get a better job. He couldn't go to a language school because of his work schedule. So he turned his car into a classroom. Every day he listened to English podcasts during his deliveries. He would repeat the phrases out loud while driving. If he didn't understand a sentence, he would pause, go back, and listen again. He also kept a voice recorder on his phone. After each delivery, he would say a sentence or 2 in English about his day. Things like, "I delivered 5 packages today," or "The weather is sunny." At night, he would listen to his recordings and correct his mistakes. After a few months, Thomas could talk about many topics in English. He even gave a short introduction about himself at a community event. Everyone was surprised by how well he spoke. Thomas told me that practicing in his own way was the best decision he ever made. He didn't wait for perfect conditions. He used his time and his tools wisely. You can do this too. Maybe you take the bus, go for walks, or have free time at lunch. Use that time to listen, repeat, and practice. Now let's meet Mary, a stay-at-home mother with 3 young children. She always wanted to learn English but thought she was too busy. One day, she heard about listening to English stories while doing house chores. She started playing English podcasts while cooking, cleaning, or folding laundry. She also asked her husband to speak simple English with her at dinner. In the beginning, it was difficult, but she kept going. One evening, her son had to speak to his teacher in English, and Mary helped him. She said simple phrases like, "Please tell your teacher I will come tomorrow." Her son repeated the sentence, and the teacher understood everything. That moment made Mary feel so proud. She realized she was learning, even without books or classes. She just had to keep listening and speaking a little every day. You see, these stories are not about people with special talent. They are about regular people, just like you, who used simple methods and daily practice to improve. Here's another example. James is a security guard at a hotel. He often meets guests from other countries. At first, he only said things like, "Welcome," or "This way, please." But one day, a family arrived and they needed help checking in. James explained the steps in English. He said, "Please go to the front desk. You need your ID and booking number." The family thanked him, and the manager who saw everything gave James a compliment. "You handled that very well." James was happy, but he wanted to do more. So, he started watching English lessons online during his breaks. He learned how to give directions, how to answer common questions, and how to be polite in English. He practiced with other staff members at the hotel. Now, James is known as the best communicator in the hotel team. He even helps train new staff members. The best part is, James never thought he was good at languages, but his story proves that with daily effort, you can learn and even teach others. Now let's stop and reflect. What do all these people have in common? They listened carefully. They practiced daily. They wrote things down. They spoke even when they were nervous. You can do all of these things too. It doesn't matter where you live or what your job is. English learning can happen at home, at work, or while walking to the store. So now I ask you, what is one small thing you can do today to practice your English? Can you describe your job in English? Can you write a short paragraph about your day? Can you ask someone a simple question in English? Don't worry about being perfect. Just keep going. Keep listening, keep writing, and keep speaking. You are part of this journey with millions of learners around the world, and we're here together every day to grow and learn. Let me share another story with you. This one is about Mark. Mark is a mechanic who works at a small car repair shop. His English skills weren't great when he first started working in this shop. He could understand basic instructions like, "Please check the engine" or "Change the oil." But when it came to talking to customers, he was often unsure. One day, a customer came in to ask about a strange noise in their car. Mark wasn't sure how to explain what was wrong, so he showed the customer the engine and pointed to the part he thought was causing the noise. But the customer didn't understand, and this made Mark feel embarrassed. After the conversation ended, Mark thought about how he could improve. He realized that he needed to learn the names of car parts in English and how to describe issues more clearly. So, Mark decided to take action. Every night after work, he would look up the names of car parts and read their English descriptions. He also started watching videos on YouTube where mechanics spoke in English. He would repeat the words out loud and write down new terms in a notebook. Slowly, he began to feel more comfortable. The next week, another customer came in with a similar issue. Mark confidently explained, "The issue is with the alternator. It's making a strange noise and we need to replace it." The customer smiled and said, "Thank you, Mark. That was very clear." Mark felt proud of himself, and he realized that the key to improving his English was practice, both listening and speaking. You see, Mark's story teaches us something important. We don't have to wait for the perfect time or perfect situation to practice English. We can use real-life examples even at work to build our skills. Just like Mark, you can start small and improve step by step. Let's take another example. This one is about Lucy, a teacher who works at a primary school. Lucy always wanted to improve her English so she could teach her students better. She was already good at speaking English, but she wanted to sound more confident and precise in her explanations. One day during a lesson, Lucy noticed that some of her students didn't understand the words she was using, especially when describing difficult concepts. That evening, she thought about what she could do to improve her teaching language. Lucy decided to listen to podcasts about teaching and education in English. She also started reading books that explained teaching methods in English. But what really helped was when she started to record herself reading from these books. She would listen to the recordings, paying attention. One day she was giving a lesson on animals, and she used words like habitat, endangered, and species. She noticed her students were following along more easily. After the class, one student said, "I like the way you explain things. It's easy to understand." Lucy felt so happy because she knew that her English had improved through daily practice. From Lucy's story, we can learn that improving English isn't always about being perfect. It's about putting in the effort to listen, read, and practice every day. And it's also about being patient with yourself. Lucy didn't become fluent overnight. She used simple strategies like listening to podcasts, reading books, and recording herself. These small actions made a big difference. Let's think about a story from Andrew, a tour guide in a famous city. Andrew speaks to many tourists every day. At first, he would give simple tours in English, but after a while, he realized that he could offer more details. He wanted to be able to tell interesting stories about the places he showed visitors, but his vocabulary was limited. Andrew decided to do something to improve. He started by listening to podcasts about the city's history and culture. He wrote down new words like architecture, heritage, and landmarks. But what really helped was when he started practicing his stories out loud. He would tell the stories in English, even when no one was around. He'd stand in front of a mirror, practicing how he would describe a historical building or a famous statue. After a few weeks, Andrew noticed a big change. When he gave tours, he was able to tell visitors much more detailed stories in English. They were impressed by how much he knew and how confidently he spoke. One tourist said, "Andrew, you're not just a guide, you're a storyteller." Andrew felt great because he knew that his effort had paid off. Andrew's story teaches us something valuable too. Sometimes learning a language means finding the specific words you need for your situation. If you work in tourism, you might learn words related to history and culture. If you're a mechanic like Mark, you might learn words related to car parts and repairs. English can be useful in many different contexts, and the more you focus on the language you'll actually use, the more confident you'll become. Speaking of confidence, let me tell you about Sophie. Sophie is a secretary who works in a busy office. She has to communicate with many people every day, both on the phone and in person. However, her biggest challenge was speaking on the phone in English. At first, she found it difficult because she couldn't see the person's facial expressions, which made it harder for her to understand. To improve, Sophie started listening to English phone conversations. She would pause the recordings after each sentence and try to repeat what she heard. She paid attention to how the speakers asked questions and responded in different situations. After a while, Sophie felt more comfortable on the phone. She practiced answering calls like this. "Good morning, this is Sophie. How can I help you?" Or, "I'll transfer you to the right department." Sophie also practiced leaving messages. One day, a caller left a message, and Sophie responded with confidence, saying, "I received your message and will pass it on to the manager." The caller thanked her, and Sophie felt proud. She realized that even though she was nervous at first, the key to success was repetition and practice. Sophie's story reminds us that there's no need to be afraid of making mistakes. Every time you practice, whether it's on the phone, in person, or in writing, you get better. Even if you don't understand everything right away, keep practicing, and over time, your confidence will grow. Now let me tell you about David, a chef at a restaurant. David had been cooking for years, but his English wasn't great. When foreign customers came to the restaurant, he felt nervous. He didn't know how to describe the dishes in English, and this made him uncomfortable. David decided to improve his English by learning the names of ingredients and cooking terms. He listened to cooking shows in English and read recipes online. He even started writing down the names of different foods and cooking techniques in a notebook. After some time, he felt more confident. One day, a customer asked about the ingredients in a dish, and David was able to explain clearly, "This dish has chicken, potatoes, and a special garlic sauce." The customer smiled and said, "This is exactly what I wanted to know." David's story shows that you don't need to be a perfect speaker to improve your English. All you need is a little bit of effort every day. Start with the words you need the most and build from there. The more you practice, the easier it gets. Think about your own life. Is there something you do every day where you could practice your English? Maybe you like to cook, or you have a hobby like photography, sports, or reading. Whatever it is, there are ways to practice English in your everyday activities. It's all about taking small steps each day. Can you think of a topic you'd like to talk about in English? Maybe something about your job, your hobbies, or a special experience? Try writing down a few sentences or even speaking about it. Keep practicing and you'll improve, just like Mark, Emma, Andrew, Sophie, and David. Let me share another story, this time about James. James is an engineer who works at a construction company. He often has to give presentations to clients, explaining the technical details of building projects. When James first started doing presentations in English, he found it challenging. The technical terms he needed to use were complicated, and he wasn't always sure how to explain them clearly. Sometimes he felt nervous when presenting, afraid he might say something wrong or that his clients wouldn't understand him. One day, after a particularly difficult meeting, James decided that he had to make improvements. He realized that he needed to focus on two things: improving his technical vocabulary and becoming more confident in his speaking. James decided to start listening to podcasts about engineering in English. He found podcasts where experts in construction explained different concepts and terminology. He also started reading books and articles in English about construction techniques. James made a habit of learning a few new terms every day. At first, it was slow. Some of the words were really complicated, but he didn't give up. He also practiced explaining the concepts aloud, using his own words. He would stand in front of a mirror or talk to his colleagues, explaining the technical details of his projects in English. This helped him build confidence and get used to saying the words out loud. A few weeks later, James had another presentation to give. This time, he felt much more prepared. He used the technical terms confidently, and he could explain the details of the project clearly to the clients. One of the clients said, "James, your presentation was really informative. I could follow everything you said, and I feel more confident about this project now." James was so proud. He knew that his hard work was paying off, and he felt more confident speaking in English. James's story teaches us something very important: learning. A language isn't just about memorizing vocabulary or grammar. It's about finding ways to use that language in real-life situations. James didn't just learn words in isolation. He learned them by listening, reading, and speaking in the context of his work. He practiced daily, and over time, his English improved. Now let me tell you about Claire, a nurse who works in a busy hospital. Claire had always been able to communicate well with her patients, but she realized that there were times when she had to use medical terms in English, and she wasn't always sure how to explain them. For example, she found it hard to explain complex procedures or symptoms to patients who didn't speak her language well. Claire decided to improve her medical English by focusing on the vocabulary that would be most useful to her. She started by watching medical videos in English, paying close attention to the way doctors and nurses explained procedures. She also looked up medical terms and learned the English words for different symptoms, treatments, and conditions. Claire made a notebook where she wrote